destroyed goodwill more than a period of needless strife and suspicion between the races. Let us condemn the violent few, but let us remember that it is law-abiding Negro families who have really suffered most at the hands of the rioters. It is responsible Negro citizens who hope most fervently and need most urgently to share in America's every citizen. I know there are millions of men and women tonight who are eager to heal the wounds that we have suffered, who want to get on with the job of teaching and working and building America. And in that spirit, at the conclusion of this address, I will sign a proclamation tonight calling in this land to go into their churches to pray for order and reconciliation among men. And I appeal to every governor and every mayor and every preacher and every teacher and parent to join and give opening word. We have endured a week such as no nation could live through. The President tonight struck the note that Americans wanted to hear. A condemnation of the riots tempered with a concern for legitimate grievances. But first of all, the President satisfied the demand to do something. He has appointed a sort of Warren Commission on the death of cities. Dan Hackle, ABC News, Washington.
What are we going to fill out with now?
First tonight came to you live from
just turn the sound
White
down.
House as a
I thought they were going to go to... Bruce, what did you think of it?
I thought it was a great speech. It was a call for national unity. It wasn't a political speech. It was a great speech, I think.
You all pretty much share that view?
You know, I think he normally gives a pretty good speech, but I think this is the thing that you have to dwell on, unity. We haven't had very much of that recently.
Do you think it's a good idea to have this sort of Warren Commission panel of some of the biggest names in the country?
I think it's a good idea, yes.
Do you think it really gets to the heart of what those people are doing out in the street?
That's a good question. I don't know.
My feelings are the same as Levi. I think this type of commission will never get down to the people in the street. It's awfully difficult to find out what they're thinking, what they're planning on doing. I mean, we've worked this way before at the top and never got it down to the bottom.
It's sort of become increasingly evident in city after city. Public officials seem to be somewhat stunned when they realize that the Negro ministers and the supposed civil rights leaders of a community are powerless in a situation like this, and that one of the Negro ministers said to me in Newark, they're not the folks that come to church on Sunday. You can't expect to get much out of them in the midst of a melee like that when you can't get to them the other 364 days a year. Do you think there was anything in Detroit that made the whole Detroit thing reach the proportion that it did?
I think actually, in many respects, Detroit looks good, even though it looks so bad. For example, it took 3 years for it to catch up in Detroit. I think one of the reasons for that is that we've done a fairly good job. And we've had pretty good relationships. The second thing is that when the riots broke out, they weren't racial in character in the sense that it wasn't white against black. It was the war on poverty in its most basic and fundamental sense, that if people went out and tried to solve the problem on a direct relationship to the goods that surrounded them and to get some of them, if you need evidence that there is a need to do something about the war on poverty, it seems to me that these riots prove it, because that's what people are reacting to. They're reacting to the fact that they don't have goods, and here are all these goods around them, and they just go out and take them, and we have to find a way to get these goods to them so that they don't take them by force and violence.
Well, Mr. Miller, you live in somewhat of a model integrated community of tomorrow, something that very few cities have. But this hasn't spread very well. Why do you think that's true? I mean, Don't you advertise how well you get along here, or?
Well, we try to, I think, but I think it takes much more than advertising. I don't really think, this is a problem so much of advertising. People aren't really going to get along until they have the things that they need. It's the people who feel most secure that can then afford to live together. We have a lot of poor whites and a lot of poor Negroes in America, and these are the people who feel least secure and least able to tolerate being integrated.
Most of the people in Detroit, no matter what color they were, the large bulk of the population were about equally afraid, I think, during all these days.
Sure. I think another thing it shows you is how a small group can take a large group and terrorize it. You have maybe 50, 100 snipers can intimidate a Negro population and a white population hundreds of times the size of this band of people marching around with rifles. It's a frightening thing.
Mr. and Mrs. Cronkite, we really haven't brought you in. It is Cronkite, right? And not Cronkite.
That's right.
That's a dirty name for us.
My daughter went back to the family tree, and when she came to the first horse thief, she stopped. We didn't go very far either.
Well, what did you think of
Those men themselves, or the people named to that commission, will not of themselves do the job. They will have to have people like fingers at the end of an arm who will really make the contacts for them. And to me, it seems that the success of the commission will depend on the facts that they get, and these people are picked not only for their prestige but also for their brain power. Now, if they have proper facts to work on, their brain power may come up with a solution. And whether they get the proper facts is going to depend on the kind of a staff that they get and the energy with which that staff pursues its job. And they have to find a staff who are not only skilled, but who have a sympathy with what is trying to be done. I think we're all, not maybe at first hand, but we're acquainted with the fact that some staff people, they become extremely zealous, and in their zeal they lose touch with what they're trying to do. And they're trying to show efficiency and energy, and they're going to bring in a great mass of so-called facts. And if they're not careful, all they bring in is a mass of things which make it look as though they've done a tremendous job without necessarily being facts. Now, if they do that, then the commission's going to fail.
Mr. Sanderson, I think you remarked when the president was on there that you thought that was one of the better speeches he had ever made.
Well, I have many concerns for it. No thoughts of my, probably thoughts of my own. But my greatest concern is, have we asked the people who are in need of the program what their needs might be? Mm-hmm. We decide what their needs are. I think perhaps they should decide that they should be able to speak.
How much was that, Larry?
About 40 feet.
Oh, well, we'll start anyway. That's only about a minute. I'm going to start talking about politics. Why don't you change it?
Let me just get some silent shot.
Mr. Jackson, there's been a lot of talk about the political influences that have come to bear not only here in Detroit in the dialogue between Governor Romney and Washington over the use of those federal troops, but some of the digs back and forth. Do you think there was much politics in the president's remarks tonight?
I don't think there was any politics in his remarks. I had the fortune I had the opportunity in May to meet the president, which was a tremendous thing as far as I was concerned. Tonight, he appeared to be the same sincere gentleman that he was when I met him in Washington. I'm part of the OEO, Business Leadership Council, and we did have a meeting in Washington in May in which we are trying to get programs developed, such as Job Corps, Vista, and what have you, And his same sincerity that he displayed in Washington was displayed tonight. That's the way I felt.
Mr. Cockroyd, do you share that there was no...
I share that
Politics.
as far as this tonight. I can't say that that's always true, but I certainly agree with Levi 100% tonight that this was not political at all. I could see no taint of politics in it. I thought it was a leader addressing his people.
Have any of you been disturbed by the undertones of politics that have been involved not only in the incidents here in Detroit this week, but just in the overall problem?
Sure.
Well, I was disturbed with the president's speech tonight that he made the announcement that he had ordered the federal troops into Detroit, because I felt that it was not a time for politics or personalities. And of course, it's been said this is an integrated group, both color-wise and politics, but I felt that he overdid the subject of Mr. Romney's failure in his announcement that evening, because I don't think anyone can say that the situation that's arising all over the country today is any one person's failure. It's the failure of all of us.
I guess it was a little tempting for him there.
Yeah, there's a problem there, isn't there? It seemed to me that we can't have two standards. Governor Romney initially was opposed to bringing the troops in and held out to the last. It was the mayor who was for bringing the troops in. So that it's just not sufficient to say from a post-mortem point of view that Johnson was reluctant to bring the troops in. He couldn't bring them in unless Romney asked for them. And then the question I ask myself is why, considering the kind of civil commotion that was going on in the city, was Romney reluctant to call for troops? I think we have to recognize that he's in politics too.
I think it largely had to do with the legal question surrounding the insurance of so much of it. If he declared it, as the White House was insisting there for a while, an insurrection, everybody's riot insurance was wiped out. And it was really the wording in those telegrams that transferred back and forth. I'm sure the insurance company's going to win out anyway. Mr. Messina, are you both in education?
Yes. I happen to be working in one of the poverty programs. I'm working with Project READ, which is adult continuing education for basic education for the adults in Detroit. And our feeling is that we're not reaching all the people that might in the program. This is, we feel, is part of the things that happen, that these people haven't had enough education to qualify for jobs, which do exist at this time for people with minimum education. And we're trying to correct this with this program, which is part of Johnson's program. It's a poverty program. I don't know how it's going to work out, how much we can do, but it's a tremendous program as far as we're concerned.
Do you think you lost any people to the streets in the past couple of days that may have been, working in those programs?
I think so. I think we'll have a problem getting them to come back into the program because of what has happened. I mean, they feel that it's not working out.
How do you feel about the way they are treating the legal issue here? Bruce, you're a lawyer, and there's a lot of talk about the small-scale experiment up there in Flint, I believe, where the mayor released 108 prisoners and told them to go back to their neighborhoods and talk it up to cool it for now. Do you think penalizing these people at this point is a sound moral, social idea? I guess legally speaking, it certainly has sounded.
Well, I don't think society can permit this kind of conduct to go on without taking a very vigorous position in reference to it. I think that you just can't philosophize abstractly when this kind of situation occurs. Society has to take a position. It's either for anarchy or it's against anarchy, and it has to do something about it. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that everybody that gets caught up into the net necessarily has to be treated, let's say, equally from the point of view of punitive action on the part of the government. There are a lot of very, very unfortunate and tragic situations in Detroit amongst those people who are caught up in it. And we have to be careful not to compound the tragedies.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in the jails here now who have established records And yet there were an awful lot of people who just went along Grand River or went along 12th Street and they saw everybody else doing it, and it's a pretty tempting thing, and so it's kind of a first offense for them.
I heard a woman, I was over at court a couple of days ago, and I heard a woman who was brought before a judge in tears. She had a daughter 10 months old. She didn't know where the daughter was. She had 3 or 4 other children. She'd been in jail for about 3 days. She hadn't been able to communicate with anybody. She was charged with looting, which meant in that case walking into a store and coming out with a bundle of groceries. And she was just in a complete state of disarray. It was just a tragedy to listen to her and think that she was in a criminal court, being treated as a criminal, and it was just a horrible thing to watch.
Do you sort of share that too?
I don't. Maybe Bruce's legal feelings are different from mine. I feel this way, that if you're going to loot, you're taking somebody else's property. You know doggone well it doesn't belong to you. And so therefore you're part of it. Regardless if you started it or not, you became part of it. Therefore you should be treated. And if you go into somebody else's, somebody came into my house to take my property, I'm going to fight. And I don't look for any justification of why they're there. I know they're there, and they should not be there. That's the way I feel about it.
A bit of an example of the ironies of circumstances.
Yeah, but I think sometimes that people are caught emotionally involved in this type of thing. I mean, they're innocently standing by and they see these things going on, and they feel empathy toward the people who are doing this thing, and they do the same things, without even thinking. They go out with no intentions of being involved in this type of thing.
You have to distinguish between people who snipe, people who commit arson, which involves a kind of a conscious mechanism to be involved in arson. You have to first get the gasoline, you have to put it in a bottle, and then you have to decide where you're going to throw it. And this is a pretty conscious thing. And the people who rush in and loot and who sell merchandise and who are involved in it from that point of view, and other people who are standing around and they see a store open and people walking in and nobody is doing anything about it. And as happened in the city of Detroit, police officers are standing by and not involving themselves in it or stopping it. And they say, well, I guess it's not against the law. And they go in and they do it.
But they still had to think, though, Bruce, that it was not against the law, and they know doggone well it was against the law.
Well, I agree with you on that level, Levi. I think that what they did was illegal, it was wrong, it's morally wrong.